Welcome to the Rotary News Network for the month of May. For this episode, we're going to be doing a one-on-one interview with District Governor Hal Stevens. Now, we've asked Rotarians from around the district to tell us what questions they would like answered about the future of Rotary. Before we start, I also want to congratulate you for all your accomplishments about the year, and everyone's just talking about getting ready for the future of Rotary. So my first question, what do you think the Rotary format will look like in the future?
The current Rotary Club format was developed during the industrial age, and of course we're now in the technological age. And the format's somewhat losing its relevance in quite a few countries around the world, especially those that are considered developed nations and those that are more technologically advanced. In many of the countries like the US, competing options for nonprofit affiliation and service are readily available. So areas across the world that seem to be thriving with the current format are still those that are typically underdeveloped nations or developing nations where the highly structured format seems to fit more of their cultural and social needs. There's a very different perception of what Rotary is and how Rotary works and how it's structured.
So what can current clubs do as an option to grow or transition for future growth?
In places like the US, we need to think more flexibly about what we want Rotary to look like and how we want it to operate, and who's the best fit for whatever new model we come up with going forward. Fortunately, Rotary realizes this and continues to update and offer us flexible options. So, for example, we need to decide if we want to continue with the format of having meetings at a fixed location. With many clubs averaging maybe 50% attendance at any given meeting, we need to consider any and all options. Maybe the meetings need to be at other locations than the standard meeting, like a food banquet or a restaurant, a different type of venue like a museum or at a university. Doing this could actually have a huge benefit because there may be monetary savings by not having to pay rental fees for the same weekly meeting spaces. Dues might have to be restructured to take into account any changes in these venues and any income that might be lost due to revenue from meals that's no longer kept for those who aren't in attendance. Another option is to have fee-based membership, where the need to meet and eat and hear speakers is not the critical feature of the club structure or health. Our clubs, for example, could advertise their focus, whether it's, for example, the arts, homelessness, education, etc., and get financial supporters through annual or scheduled monthly donations to help the causes that the individual club sponsors as its focus. And maybe that's the kind of format that we need to have, and that becomes the main structure rather than formal weekly meetings. If we do that, then the members, the people who are supporting the causes, can actually pick and choose which formats they like, which projects they like, and show up and help for those projects only while still supporting the clubs. Still another option, very similar to what we're currently doing, is to further develop the use of satellite clubs that have an intent to remain part of the host club and not to get to a point where they're just a temporary satellite and then they move off and charter themselves. And the satellites, frankly, could be made of all kinds of people who may not fit the host club makeup. Each satellite can have its own structure, its own member group, and its own project focus. The role of the host club would be to provide back office type of functions like billing for dues, doing reporting to Rotary, setting up any type of 501c3 status, and etc. And this would be similar to the hub and spoke setup, or like a corporate office and branch offices. And this would make the need for chartering all of these satellites as separate clubs unnecessary, and the host club would have an incentive now to further develop membership and to get different types and different diversity in its current membership.
These are very flexible, creative, and I think very forward-thinking options.
Well, yes, Janet, they are. With flexibility and forward-thinking strategies, it's very possible for Rotary to expand its makeup and increase its diversity and inclusion with different types of people. My advice to all clubs is be creative. Think beyond your current structure. develop a strategy maybe that takes you out of your comfort zone, and just do what you need to do to grow and thrive.
We hear that younger members are the future of Rotary. So what is your advice about how to make this happen?
Well, Janet, the first thing we need to clarify is exactly who are younger members, because depending on the club, the people may be age 45 to 55 and be considered younger members. Or it could be the other end of the spectrum, and I'll call them up-and-comers. It could be future professionals. We could call them anything, really. These would be people who fit into the category of Interact Club or Rotaract Club, basically anything from high school all the way to college to new young professionals. And we need to figure out where the members fit in that group and then how we cultivate them for a long period of time. And I can tell you from visits to the many clubs that I've made over the past 3 years that not all clubs are equipped to attract and maintain members who don't fit their current general club age and makeup. And yet, if they don't do this, if they don't embrace this need to bring in other members, newer members, younger members, the current membership may shrink and basically evaporate due to various ways of attrition.
How do clubs overcome what's holding them back so that they can grow and expand with more youthful membership?
It might be advisable to attract members with a similar service focus, and that's regardless of age, and then to use the club focus in these projects and community activities as their basis for attracting new members. Finding common ground with their mission versus focusing on age might be a better plan and wind up attracting more members and maybe even more younger members than they had originally intended. Even if the members it attracts are the same age group or same overall makeup as the current club, that's not a problem because it still allows them to have additional people to help them do their service projects and their activities, and do this regardless of worrying about age.
Okay, so what do clubs do structurally, since we're still on the subject of youth, what do they do structurally to help attract younger or diverse membership?
Well, Janet, I think one of the easiest things to do is for a club to use the satellite format, as I mentioned before, because it's just so flexible. Satellites can encourage the formation of anything from young professional clubs to specific focused area clubs. For example, something that comes to mind, suppose you wanted to have a Spanish-speaking club where all the meetings were held in Spanish. That might not fit your current host club format, but it might be perfect for establishing a satellite club. And frankly, that's one that wouldn't be dependent on age, because anyone who speaks the language, regardless of who they are and where they come from, could potentially be a member of that club. They could even have clubs, for example, of runners, of weightlifters, of car buffs. The possibilities are endless for getting a focused satellite club and then channeling the people in that club to come together and do specific fundraise or specific community service projects. If we're talking specifically about the people I mentioned before as up-and-comers or, in quote, new professionals, they probably need a different approach. For these up-and-comers, we need a way to track them and communicate with them and do things more in line with their generational preferences and comfort zones. For example, many of our clubs already have junior Rotarians. They give student scholarships, they sponsor RILA students, they sponsor wings of Rotary students, they mentor Rotaract clubs, etc. These people would fit into the much younger up-and-coming member profile. Yet somehow we never keep up with these students in a well-thought-out, formulaic, and successful way. We never encourage them or even inform them of other Rotary activities that they could or should be involved in. Basically, they had a great Rotary experience, and then we let them drop off the radar. Frankly, it's our fault that we have this great group of enthusiastic, potential future Rotarians, and we just let them slip through our system. We need to find a way to keep track of them and help them transition through other Rotary alternatives all the way through them becoming eventual Rotary Club memberships. And by the way, since most of these up-and-comers probably have parents. We should also be focusing on how do we attract these parents, because they've already seen the value of Rotary in their students or their young professionals, and they would be absolutely prime people to focus on to bring into our Rotary clubs.
Well, District Governor, it seems there's been so many more questions, but so little time to answer them.
Janet, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of RNN. Now, don't forget to send in your videos of your club's events and activities, for next month's episode. So we'll see you next month.